All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Work in Progress, the show about work, life, and everything in between. Sometimes I forget what the show's about. My name is Colin,
I'm Rachel.
and today we have with us Ashley Warren back on the show. Welcome back.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
This
Thank
is
you,
this is like
Ashley.
this is one of our first repeats. We've got
Ooh, I'm
bringing
flattered.
back the repeat guests
Yes.
because we
Yes.
got so many good things to talk about. So today we are actually going to be talking more about a process. We're going to be talking about book clubs, and we're launching our book clubs. Ashley was working on her own book club with her community, and so we thought it would be a good idea to partner for this first one. And there's a bunch of fun things that we can kind of get into. We were just nerding out about libraries, and we can go down that rabbit hole a little bit. Yeah, I think to kick us off, just for people who are not familiar, Ashley, what is Scribemind?
Sure. So Scribemind is, well, it's mostly yours truly. I am the scribe and the mind behind Scribemind, which is how people tend to describe it. But it's basically my personal business. It's my company through which I offer creative mentorship, writing, contract writing, narrative design. Anything I do with my Dungeons and Dragons side hustle is through Scribemind. Sometimes offering resources, sometimes doing research, working with writers. So basically anything at the intersection of writing, research, and education is what you can expect from my one-woman agency, Scribemind. So that's a little bit about what it is.
Cool. And then you also have a community that you've been building around it as well. You want to talk
Yes.
about like what you're using for that and how that works?
Sure. So yes, we have the Scribemind community, also known as the Scribe Minds. So we have a bunch of fellow Scribe Minds, people who are also creatives, and yes, including Rachel and Colin. You guys are both Scribe Minds, and what that entails is basically it's mostly a Discord community. We use that as kind of our main hub for chatting and just discussing creative projects. It's mostly hosted through my Patreon, which is patreon.com/scribemind, and that's just basically a way for me to offer specific resources to creatives. I have a mentorship program where I work one-on-one with creative people. There's a level where you can join a book club and basically get like a little bit more hands-on creative support for any kind of project that you're doing. And then there's just the general get stuff done level, which I shamelessly stole from the collective, which is basically just about like, here's how you do cool stuff, cool creative stuff every day. And so I'll make like templates or resources or things like that to share with the community. So that's basically what the Scribemind community consists of. But it's mostly just like an awesome group of people who all kind of are united in our shared interests, our shared passion for storytelling in its many forms. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love the whole group.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the big thing what I like about what you're doing with the book club is why we're chatting now is that I've been a part of book clubs and things in the past that just kind of fizzle out and they're just like everyone read the book, we're gonna meet every week. And what I liked about how you're like we're trying to figure out like what structure do we want to bring to like make the book club work for us, and that we can repeat in the future. And so we'll talk about the workbook and the more in-depth stuff in a little bit, but I think that kind of structuring it and making it into something that we've all learned that during the pandemic that people are already busy. So adding more things to their plate is hard, and adding like 4 or 5 meetings is going to be hard. So how do we do this like in a more asynchronous way where everyone can read the book and then we'll meet on the other side and kind of discuss it? Do you have a structure for how you're doing it with Scribemind, like as far as like doing weekly check-ins or anything like that, or how's that going to look for you guys?
Yeah, so it was important to me to set up a book club that wouldn't just be another thing for people to do. And I think in general with creativity, it's important to not always just work in abstractions, because it's very easy to always just like talk about creativity, to talk about books, to talk about reading, and then like not actually do it. So it's still not like super structured. I do check in with the Scribe Minds, every few days, like who's reading the book, like how are you enjoying it so far, any kind of major takeaways. And then we had planned already in March to basically do like a guided chat via Zoom, which I will guide, because I really want it to be fun and actionable. And I want the takeaways from the book to be things that people actually apply to their lives. So that was kind of established from the beginning that this will be, a book club where we're all going to be, sharing our thoughts freely, but I am going to kind of guide you through it so that you don't feel like you just read and that's it. I'm also a big believer in like active reading, like as you're reading something, like annotating your book, like taking notes, especially for a book like the first one that we're reading, which I'm sure we'll talk about it shortly. Like rather than just kind of like passively reading it and kind of letting the information just like go out of your head as soon as you're reading it, to be more of an active reader. And the book that we read, luckily, really rewards that. And then I also made a workbook, which I've actually kind of encouraged the Scribeminds to, like, you don't have to use it right away. It's mostly there to kind of reinforce the ideas that are addressed in the book. So again, that you can apply your learnings and actually feel like the book was worth reading beyond just kind of the theoretical things, and you're actually applying your learnings to your life, so that it feels like a valuable use of everyone's time and not just another thing you have to do, because everyone's a little tapped out right now.
Yeah,
It's not just
it's
homework.
very true. I think like the word that you just used, reinforcing, being able to reinforce what the material is that you read and using it in a real way. So sometimes, you approach a book and you're like, oh, that guy had like 5 major points. Those are pretty good. But if you're not actively engaged in it, it might be another book on your shelf that you
Right.
had some really interesting notes about. But if you haven't done the work, or at least tried to format it for your own life, I think you miss a lot,
Yeah, and like not every book we read like requires lots of intense note taking. I'm a big fan of note taking. There's this whole movement of like digital note taking is like, oh, the smart people do this, and I think it's a little culty. But I do like just because there's like a lot of like really strong personality types around people who really advocate for digital note taking,
Yeah.
and I'm just a believer in like not overdoing anything like that. I think it's nice to read a book and really feel like we can apply it to our lives, but I also think reading should be fun, and it's not like every time I read a fiction book I'm like carefully and
What
well,
are they
I guess
trying
I'm
to
not,
say here?
in a way I am, because that's just how my brain works, and this is I have a background in learning how to do that in college and whatnot, and I'm a writer, so I'm always like studying writing regardless. But it's different than like when you're reading a book that is nonfiction and it's like, it's kind of in the self-help category, and so usually those I take a little bit more seriously in terms of taking notes. So I wanted to kind of foster that in my community, that being an active reader means that you actually get to remember the things that you liked, and you're not just like, there's this quote that I read in a book and I can't remember what it was. Like, you've actually like taken the time to document that as you're reading it. So yeah, that's kind of my approach to this book club. I want to read fun, engaging, and helpful books that people remember and feel like actually made a difference for them.
Perfect. Well, what's the first book? What are we reading?
Yeah, so our first book is Make Time: How to Focus on What Matters Every Day by Jake Knapp and John Zeratsky. I have to remember this. I should have had my notes open. Actually, here we go.
And I think the second one goes by Jay-Z, probably for the very, very obvious reasons.
And in the book, they use kind of their own like nicknames and things like that. But yeah, so both of those authors are former employees at Google, and so they've spent a lot of time kind of in, at the heart of like hustle culture, that kind of. I think Google has done some innovative things in the workspace, but also has, set some expectations that have rippled elsewhere into the industry for how people are kind of expected to work and balance their lives and creativity. But they both have a lot of, insight into that. And now both of them are like full-time authors. They both work for themselves, which of course doesn't always have to be the goal, but it's just kind of interesting seeing their career trajectory and moving away from that kind of startup environment, which, I mean, Google is not really a startup anymore, but they've kind of like set the expectations for other startups. And the book is about basically how to make time to do the things that you want to do, because our modern lives aren't really structured to have a lot of time for the things that really matter. And we get really caught up in, work and our, expectations from others, and, all sorts of other factors. And at some point we have to just take control over our lives and schedules. And that is easier said than done, especially because as the book goes into, like, there are a lot of resources that are purposely designed to be time sinks for us. And so basically the book is just a very actionable kind of game plan for how to reclaim your time, so that if you want to do something like write a novel or learn how to play an instrument or do something like that, you actually can factor that into your day in a way that feels organic and natural, rather than always kind of beating yourself up for not doing the things that you want to do. So yeah, that's kind of just the overall gist of it, is that we actually do have enough time in the day to do things, but we have to be very conscious about how we're using our time, which again, easier said than done. And the book will totally say that it's easier said than done.
Well, and this is a topic that we've been talking about in a lot of these episodes, in Atomic Habits chats and Codivation, all these different things that's come up. And I'm a fan. I mean, we use Jake's other book called Sprint at work, and it's really like structured around it's things that he took from Google that a lot. I guess the subhead is how to solve big problems and test new ideas in 5 days. And I haven't read this book yet, so I'm excited to read Make Time. But Sprint was like easily digestible and actionable, and I think like what you were mentioning before is that's key. It's one of those books where, you know, in Kindle, I'm going to be highlighting, you know, different things that I want to look back on. Or if you've got a paper copy that you can just mark it up, highlight it, do whatever you need to do to get something out of it.
Yeah, this book was, so I love reading ebooks. I'm basically like ebook only these days, which I think surprises a lot of people because I'm a big bookworm, but I love reading ebooks because I like to highlight things. I like to annotate and be an active reader. And I highlighted so many things. There was 3 pages in a row, and I was like, it's not really helpful to highlight if I'm highlighting every single sentence, but it was just like the passages were so impactful, and I was like, wow, I really want to like think about this and process it. So it's definitely one of those books where I felt like I was really getting a lot of specific takeaways and taking a lot of notes for myself. And I like this book because it's not sanctimonious at all. It's not like if you don't do these things, you're awful or you're not disciplined. It kind of like breaks down those kind of myths about productivity and time management, because that is kind of a cycle that I get into with myself where I feel guilty about the ways that I'm not using my time to the fullest. And I think especially now during the pandemic, like I think a lot of people are feeling that way. We're like, oh, we've had this time at home. Like we've been in quarantine for basically a year at this point. Like, what do we have to show for it? Like, right. Should we have been doing some grand project, while we've been home?
Yeah. Like all the great philosophers during the last plague, what things they created during it. It's like, that's not our goal here. And they do say on their website, like most time management advice is written by or about superhumans, but we're normal, fallible human beings who get stressed out and distracted just like everyone else. And we feel that. I mean, we keep adding the disclaimer, like we're not doing these things to be maximally effective. We're doing it so we can like literally get the hell away from the work and, do a good job, but also take care of ourselves, do other things. And if that's writing a book, then cool. If that's going down making sourdough bread or whatever quarantine hobbies people picked up, that's fine too.
I kind of miss when everyone was into sourdough baking. I feel like last year, because everyone was like all in it together. Yeah. Before everyone started to splinter off and be like, okay, I'm bored of following societal rules. So who cares?
We were waiting for the next March to come around, so we just got a starter so we could start playing around with it.
Nice. But, it's never too late to learn how to bake bread. I kind of like that in a way. There's been a resurgence of learning kind of the basic survival skills and living a little bit more slowly and sustainably, which I think this book really complements that, because like you said, it's not about maximizing every single hour of your day. It's just basically like looking at your life holistically, like where is my time going? Is it going to the things I actually care about? And I appreciated that one of the authors has 2 children, because I think, again, a lot of like advice like this is written by, child-free people with a lot of disposable income, and their lives aren't necessarily as relatable for people with families or who are caretakers of any kind. And I appreciated that they addressed caretaking in the book, both for, people who have children or people taking care of family members. Like that changes the way anyone structures their time. And if you have a full-time job and you're taking care of people outside of that, like what other time do you have, and where do you put that time? But even then, there's still ways to incorporate the things that you enjoy doing into your life, because everyone should have an outlet, outside of work and taking care of other people. So yeah, I definitely appreciated that tone of the books. I do agree that other time management advice is not very realistic for like most people. Like, yeah. People have to work, people have to take care of other people. It's just the reality.
Definitely. As far as getting the book, Rachel, do you want to talk and share a little bit about Overdrive and what we're doing there?
Yeah, so what we'll do with Reno Collective members are going to have access to Overdrive, our own Overdrive account, which is very similar to what you can do at the library. So like Ashley was saying, with like ebooks and such. And it'll allow us to keep a certain number of copies on hand that members will be able to take out. It's not quite set up yet, but they're going to finish that up soon, I hope. But it's also, you can get it through the library. I know you can also buy it like locally. I always urge people to buy it from a local bookstore. So Sundance bookstores and Grassroots are the two that I commonly use. But otherwise, you can buy the book online, but we'll be having Overdrive shortly.
Definitely. Yeah, so if you're not a member, definitely it's one of the things we'll talk about at the end of the show here. But I'm excited about this. We've had a bookshelf at the collective, and it usually just collects dust. And Ashley, I think it was you that was like, how cool would it be if we had a library? And I want to be a librarian for the collective. And so we will literally have like Reno Collective book card. We won't have library cards, but everyone will have a login. And if we really want to, we could create some library cards. But
yes.
It will allow us to curate like kind of an evergreen collection. Like we'll just have books that we really love. But like Rachel's saying, we can then say like, hey, we want 20 copies of this, and it does work like the library. So like we'll make it so that they like have to be returned right digitally. But I'm excited that can also include audiobooks and other things. And it's cool to see that exists. Like I went down that rabbit hole just Googling, like there has to be like your own library system. And so we're excited about that. So our new online portal that we launched a few weeks ago will actually be your login into that portal. So it's another reason to actually log in if you're a member and you haven't logged in yet. We have a new online community, and that's going to be where we're going to discuss the book kind of week to week, and then at the very end of the month we'll do a Zoom discussion to give everybody a chance to finish up the book, and we can actually go through like who agrees, who disagrees, what was great, what was bad, and see if people have been able to put it into practice.
Yeah, I think that'll be the really interesting part, is to see as a group how you've put it into practice, because I think it takes reading 4 or 5 different time management books. It's looking at all the different approaches to see which one fits you best. And I've gone through a couple where you start out and you're like, whoa, that is not going to fit my lifestyle. Sleep, while I realize that's really important, that is the thing that starts to suffer. And it's like, I don't need to be harassed by a book about my sleeping patterns necessarily. It's like,
and I think most people's introduction to time management is like the Eisenhower matrix, which is designed for robots, not for humans. Really. It's like you can't put everything into the 4 boxes, and even if you do, I think Ashley, was it either Ashley or Rachel? You've mentioned like the glass balls and juggling, right? It's that some things that you're juggling you can let drop and they'll bounce back up and you can pick them up, and some of them like are made of glass and they will break if you drop them. So the Eisenhower matrix is great if you have a small list of things that you can divide up and then conquer them, but there's some things that go on for weeks, some things that go on for months, and they can't always be urgent and important all the time for that 8 months, or you're going to burn out too. So so this episode is not to figure out the answer to these problems, but we can obviously talk about it all night. So as far as books, though, I do think like Mike Henderson brought up a good point, that we do tend to focus on Atomic Habits type books, personal development and self-help, but I would love to hear from members and anyone out there listening what other books you'd like to go into. I think we have definitely, beaten the horse to death on that one in terms of Atomic Habits, and Make Time will be a great way to go into that in the new year, and then we can look at other areas. So fiction books are not off the table. We could definitely look there. I just finished the first fiction book in a long time. It feels like, just because I've been reading lots of nonfiction. But I'd love to hear, if there's books you guys want to see, if there's anything that anyone out there is listening wants to throw in one, we can definitely do that. One of the things we are going to try to do, and we skipped it at the top, was that we're partnering with Ashley and Scribemind for this one. We're trying to partner with authors or other communities that we can then kind of team up, right? We have our community, which has our perspective, but we want to add other perspectives to that. And so we can't talk about some of the ones that we're trying to get figured out right now, but definitely in the areas of like personal finance and retirement, which I know is a really big area that a lot of our freelancers and startups are interested in. Fiction books, I don't know what fiction people are reading these days, but I just finished Dune for the first time.
Oh, you did.
Which was a very difficult to read book for me, and I don't know why, but that's like part of why having a book club would be really good for something like that.
Yeah, that book is very dense.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's like the book that like all geeks are supposed to read, but it was it's
hard.
a little bit of a slog. Yeah, it
hard.
has some cool ideas, but yeah, I'm a big fan of reading fiction for book clubs too, because fiction is so subjective. I mean, obviously nonfiction is as well, but it's the kinds of discussions around that are so different, which I think is fun. I personally I can't read too much nonfiction. I have to read more fiction than nonfiction. Like, nonfiction tends to be like my break between fiction books. But yeah, I think it would be fun to delve into that. And for our Scribemind Book Club, I wanted to start with a book like Make Time, kind of like what you said. It's the beginning of the year. It's a good time to kind of evaluate your habits. We almost did Atomic Habits, which is a book that I really like, thanks to you both, because I've read it on your recommendation. But our goal is to read more books about like the writing craft and other types of topics that relate to storytelling. But I think that for creatives, thinking about creative process and time management is the key to having a creative career, or any sort of career that requires you to have some control over your time. So so that was kind of that's our lead into that topic, and then it'll be fun to decide what we want to read next. There's lots of great books out there about writing and game design and game theory and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we did a sort of poll as far as what people would be interested in with fiction. I wonder how that would go.
Yeah.
It would.
I mean, we can share a little bit on what we put out a poll to see what kinds of classes people would want, and I have a feeling that the books are kind of similar. And what was really surprising, we were like, do you want to have classes on how to make more money as a freelancer, or on how to do learn to code or design or write? And almost all of them were like how to relax, be less anxious, get more time. And I was like, okay, 100%. We're reading what everyone's putting down. And they're like, please don't give me more homework, kind of feeling.
Yeah, I know. I was talking about that with the Scribeminds this week, because a lot of people haven't started the book yet, which again is totally fine. There's never any pressure, but it's funny because the book that we're reading is about how to kind of better prioritize to do the things that you want to do. But I think a lot of us are really stuck in this mode of feeling like we've been working a lot. That's kind of, for some of us, the only thing there is to do right now during COVID. And I feel like reading fiction could be a fun break from that, because to me, I read fiction to rest and relax. I'm never happier than when I'm in the middle of a good book, and when I make time to read every night, I'm mentally better, I sleep better. So I feel like there's probably some connection to be made there with reading, rather than reading as homework, reading just for fun and making it a good positive habit. But I don't know, everything feels like work right now. Everything's hard.
Well, I think that's really going to be an important part of moving forward, is where we it'll be nice to get back to some sort of normal, but how to take that with us, how to take all the excess work that we've been doing, whether it's to fill the time or whether it's by expectation from others, and reevaluating exactly where that balance is. But yeah, you're right. Spending the time on your own, how do you, if work is always in the back of your mind, and whether it's for an employer or whether like it's your own, a passion project or something that you're working on yourself, like Scribemind, we've still got to find that balance. And if it's always on the back of your mind, are you always in front of the computer? Are you always working on that? And I think that's I haven't read the book yet, but I think that's part of what the Make Time seems to me is trying to find a way to really step back and step away from all of that.
Yeah, it really is. Like they do encourage, and I feel like this is a phrase that I think Colin probably taught me, but rather than work-life balance, it's work-life harmony, which is like finding a way to like exist with your work without it like controlling the rest of your life. But I feel like the book, like, again, it's very actionable. Every chapter has a bunch of like tactics that are very specific about like how to basically like audit your time and then like reprioritize. And like one of them was like, to take off your like social media apps off of your smartphone, because things like Twitter tend to be huge time sinks. I know that's been a problem for me in the past, where it's called like the infinite loop, where you're always scrolling, there's always new content, you're always checking to see what people are posting. And then when you get a notification, it kind of like lights up that part of your brain that feels like it, needs to check that. And we're just like always in that loop. Like, how much time do we all waste every day on social media? Some social media is valuable, but a lot of it's not. And so that's like a huge time sink. And so if that's like one aspect of your life that you can modify a little bit, even through something as specific and simple as just taking the apps off of your phone, so that you add a little bit of friction for yourself, like that's already like a huge step that you're taking toward, not even better managing your time, just like not giving your time away so freely to things that don't really give you anything back. It's just kind of like junk food for your brain. So like, that's what I really like that about the book. 'Cause it was like, literally do this. Like, here's what your home screen can look like on your phone. And I'm actually, and I'm like doing that now because I wanted to actually try it out and kind of go through those steps, because a lot of it is like kind of, it's rethinking our approach to things. Because, and again, the book doesn't like really make you feel guilty. It's not like if you spend time on Twitter every day, you're a loser. It's more like these apps are designed to hold on to your attention. Like, and they say, they're like, as people who worked at Google, we're complicit in why you're like kind of addicted to different, social media platforms or things online. You're watching YouTube videos. So it's not your full responsibility to do that, but you do have to make the behavioral shifts and the mindset shifts to wean yourself off of that. So yeah, and that's kind of what the whole book is like. Here's a bunch of little, very doable, very manageable suggestions, and you really free up a lot of time in your day, and also just mentally when you kind of go through some of those steps. So that's what I was excited about with this book, was that it was so specific. It has literally like templates and things to use, and I love a good template.
I mean, even your workbook brings up a few good topics, but we're going to leave all of those for the book club. So, so if people want to participate in the book club, they can do so two ways. The first is to become a Scribemind patron. I think it's patreon.com/Scribemind.
Correct.
Or you can become a collective member. We've launched our new Reno Collective memberships at renocollective.com. And if you want extra points, you can be both. So it's nothing stopping you from doing both. Two awesome communities to belong to. We also, for the collective, we have the next batch of Codivation that's going to be running starting the first week of March. So that's actually an 8-week. It's called Codivation. It's a mastermind group. We've had to kind of play around with the words because a lot of people don't know what Codivation is. But it's basically a mastermind facilitated weekly meeting where we actually go through and look at your goals, look at your habits, and actually create a habit in pursuit of a project or a goal that you have. And so that one will definitely feel more like homework than a book club, but the goal is to, adopt a habit over those 8 weeks that might affect, you writing your next book, growing your business, whatever that might be. So definitely check that out. That's also at renocollective.com.
It could also
go ahead,
it could also be reading a nonprofit book, reading a
I mean, there's
nonfiction
nonprofit
book.
books.
I mean, I used to have a lot of difficulty getting past the first third of nonfiction books, unless I had to for class. But yeah, lately I've been able to do that, but that can be a challenge. And then also just like you were saying, Ashley, like that moment of sort of relaxation / meditation that happens when you read. I think it's a great habit to be in with nightly reading of a book and building that sort of habit. It's like with me and my kids, well, my husband and our kids, everybody gets books read to them at night, and it's just a habit that formed. And yeah, so you could do 2 in 1 by combining them.
Yeah, well, I think reading right now is such a great hobby. It's technically free if you get a library card, which obviously here we're all big fans of the library. And that's where I get all my books. I did end up buying this book because I knew I would probably want to revisit it, and I just wanted to have it always available. But yeah, I think it's such a great hobby to just really delve into stories, to delve into learning something new. I mean, I do think that things are hard for people right now, but it is kind of a good opportunity to rethink the things that we care about. I mean, it's kind of a big societal excuse for us to reprioritize everything that we thought mattered. And I think reading for me, like I set a pretty ambitious reading goal this year, but I've been having so much fun reading, and it really is like, it is a relaxing outlet. And every night, like my Fitbit is like, oh, you must be asleep, and I'm like, no, I'm just reading. I'm just like in the zone right now. And so I do feel like I sleep better unless I'm like really into a book and then I stay up way too late reading it, which is my constant problem. Yeah, but there's a balance there.
There's a book series.
I haven't figured it out, but
there's a book series that does that for me, and thankfully I've caught up, and the author only puts out one every couple of years because I can't just lose all that sleep to that, but they're so good. So
that's great.
Awesome. Well, do you want to plug anything else where people can find you, Ashley? And we will.
Sure. You can find me at scribemind.com. That's kind of my main hub. You can find a link to my Patreon there. I'm on Twitter at Ashley NH Warren, but if you're not going to be on Twitter because you're trying to do things for Make Time, then we can connect in other ways. Scribemind's also on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, it's at Scribemind Studio. And I like Instagram probably the most out of social media sites because I'm a visual person and I like to connect with people there. So if you're on Instagram, let's be friends there. I don't spend as much time there as I do on Twitter, so I consider that a healthier social media platform for me.
And Rachel, where can people find the collective going forward?
Oh, you can find us in all the same places, but the best place to find us is going to be renocollective.com. So you'll see all of the information about the new online memberships that we offer, and then more about what Reno Collective offers. And connecting up with us in that online community is the perfect way, whether you're interested in the book club, the mastermind group, really just meeting other members, fellow members, and fellow work from homers as well are all going to be on there.
Awesome. Yeah, it sucks that we have to be mostly online, but we're gonna have some fun things to share later about physical space when it's safe to do so. And I lost my train of thought there, so we'll end there. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. The big thing is that you'll find us here every Wednesday at 5 p.m. So thanks for tuning in. We have a cool topic for next week, which we'll check all the socials for that, and we'll see you next week. At 5 p.m. Peace, PST. See you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.